welcome back to yet another episode. I'm your friendly neighborhood coach Jose, and it's so good to see you all again with your smiling faces, ready for another little tennis lesson. And in this episode, we're going to learn how to return the serve. Let's get into it. Oh, she's hot out here. I'm already sweating like a water fountain. When we look at the returns, there's a few key points that we need to make sure we get right first. When we stand properly, we want to make sure that we've got a nice wide base, so we're standing about a racket width apart, so 1 foot either side. You may have seen coaches say this before many times, and this is a good distance to be apart. Now you need to make sure you have a little bend in your knees, so make sure you get low, have a slight bend in your knees. The reason for this is so that you can be quite athletic and energetic, like have energy in your legs ready to go, ready to explode into the direction you want to go. Because if you're trying to return a serve that's coming down quite fast, you need to be ready to move straight away. If you have any hesitation, you're going to struggle to get that return properly out in front of you, which leads us onto the next couple of points. Now, another thing we can also look at is the grip. Now this one, it's up to you. You can go check out my grips video up the top here. This is not really an episode on how to hold the racket. Now you do need to make sure that you hold a fairly neutral grip, whether you have a two-handed backhand or two-handed forehand or whatever. You need to make sure you hold fairly neutral so you can get to both sides. Now for myself, I use more so the continental grip. Maybe sometimes if I know that they're serving a lot into my forehand, I might hold into the forehand slightly more, but most of the time I'm fairly neutral in the continental grip. And if you have a two-handed backhand, I recommend fairly neutral on your non-dominant arm to be ready to drive that backhand straight wherever you want it to go. I was going to say up the line, but we're not going up the line all the time. That's very high risk. And then when we return, we're always stepping forward into the return. One of my favorite return of serve motions is Andy Murray. He does stand back a little bit more, but then what he does is he'll take a step forward and then he'll do his split step and then move into wherever the ball is going. So you always want to make sure you carry that forward momentum into your serve. I encourage all of my students to do this because it carries through momentum into the serve. You can keep going forward. It's very important you get the timing of this right. The timing of when you do your split step is the time when your server or the server is contacting the ball. So as soon as they touch the ball, that's when you do the split and you push off into the direction of wherever the ball is going, whether it's to your forehand or to the backhand, and you're prepared. Now for positioning on the court, whether you're up next to the baseline, in front of the baseline, or way behind the baseline. As you may see, some players that shuffle back quite a bit more behind the baseline to return the serves, like Rafa, Carlos Alcaraz, even Medvedev as well, they stand way back to return the serve. Now this gives them a little bit more time to return the serves, but what it also does is opens up the angles for the server. They can again easily find those wide serves, especially, and then they can also get that T serve if you're hanging on that wide serve a little bit more. So you want to try and cut off those angles as much as possible, but still give yourself a little bit of time to be able to get to the serve and time it out in front of you, which will lead into that in a second. I personally stand about a couple feet away from the baseline for all. Sometimes if I'm really struggling against a fast-paced server, I might stand back just a little bit just to give myself that half a second longer to be able to get that racket ready and out in front of me. And for second serves, you can even stand right inside the baseline, which will then put pressure on the server because you're making yourself seem bigger, larger than life, coming inside the court and putting that pressure on them because you can easily just drive that second serve straight through them. And on a second serve, if they have a good kick serve, you want to make sure that you stop that ball from getting away from you, getting too high. You want to try and take it a little bit more on the rise. That way you can get through your shot rather than it jump over your head and be incredibly hard if they have a very good kick serve. Now that we've got a nice strong base, so our feet a good racket's distance, look at that, I'm even further away. So feet a good racket's distance or just slightly more is even better, and having good bend in our knees. The next thing we want to make sure that we check out is that our feet are not flat. We want to be on our toes. We don't want to have the balls of our feet or our heels on the ground. If we do this, our weight is going to be fairly neutral rather than being on our toes and quite energetic, ready to bounce and push off into the direction we need to go. We want to make sure that we're on our toes and very explosive, ready to move in the direction of where the ball is going to be. Now for the swing on the serve. You don't want to take a massive swing if that ball is coming at you rather fast. If they're serving down big bombs at you, You want to try and take away this big backswing and keep the racket shorter. So abbreviate the swing. What you're doing now is from ready position here, your racket goes forward and blocks through. You continue that forward motion. You don't take the racket for a big swing here because you don't have a lot of time. The time it takes you to do this big swing, that ball's already here and you're going to time it very late, which you might be already experiencing and why you're watching this episode. Now, if you've got a little bit more of an extreme grip, you're going to contact the ball slightly later anyway. But you always want to make sure that you contact the ball as neutral or as comfortable as possible. Contacting the ball late back here and close to you is not very comfortable. So I know sometimes you can't be quick enough. That serve is coming down at 200 plus kilometers an hour or whatever it is in miles. I'm sorry, Americans, I don't know. You don't have the time, so what you need to do is just try and make sure that you can get that racket to block the ball back in front of you. All your momentum and all your strength is in front of you. If you're going backwards or if you're losing your balance, you're not very strong in that position and it's very hard to be able to get the ball in. Your best option at that point in time is just to launch it up to give yourself any sort of chance to get it to go in. So remember, when you're taking your racket for a big first server, don't take a big swing behind you. What you want to make sure that you do is the racket shortens so it doesn't go back, it stays in front, and then you step through your return of serve. That way you can have the control in front of you and you're using the power from the server instead of trying to generate your own power. So if that serve is coming down fast, you don't have to generate power. You can use theirs by blocking it in front and driving through. And that is the key to returning big first serves. Now, it's different for second serves. If you have a bit more time and that ball is moving a little slower, you can take a little bit more of a swing at the second serves, but make sure you prepare yourself as much as possible. Now, when I say that, I mean, remember, like I said about the motion, making sure you have momentum, your energy on your toes, and you turn and step through your return. Make sure you can always carry momentum throughout your returns, whether it's a big first serve or a slowing moving second serve, and you have more time to rotate or load and release the energy through your own body. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope you got something out of it and that you can master the return of serve now. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That way I can catch you in the next episode. Until then, thanks for tuning in.